Edmonton's real estate market took an interesting turn in November, and it wasn't the direction that most people expected. There's a shift happening, a subtle one, but the kind that can completely change how you think about timing your move. Whether you're planning to buy or thinking about selling, this shift could matter more than you realize. And in this video, I'm breaking it all down from prices to inventory and what that means for buyers and home sellers heading into 2026. Hey, it's Allan here, a local realtor here in the city of Edmonton, and today we're breaking down the November stats for the greater Edmonton area and the city of Edmonton's real estate market. I'm going to walk you through the official numbers from the Realtors Association of Edmonton, explain what they actually mean, and show you how this winter slowdown might create one of the best buying windows we've ever seen, and how it sets the stage for the 2026 market. And as you are watching, if something jumps out at you, make sure you drop it in the comments. I'm always curious what surprises future buyers and sellers the most. All right, so let's pull up the numbers and start with the big picture, because this is where the entire story of the November market really begins. Now, when you zoom out and look at the overall picture for the greater Edmonton area, you can start to see how November really played out. So here's what stood out. Sales dropped about 20% from October. New listings fell almost 30%, and the average days on the market climbed. That's a clear seasonal slowdown. That's totally normal for November. But here's the part most people miss. Year over year, new listings are actually up. Inventory is way up, over 33% higher than last year. And prices, they're still holding stronger than people expect from this time of year. This is exactly where opportunity starts to show up. And if we zoom in just to the city of Edmonton, the story is almost identical, just a little tighter. Sales dropped about 19% month over month. New listings fell sharply, and prices softened slightly from October, but remained steady year over year. So both the city and the greater region slowed down together, but the foundation under the market is still very solid. Now that we've looked at the overall picture, let's break down how the activity shifted, starting with sales and new listings. Now, when you look at the actual market activity, the number of homes being listed and the numbers being sold, you can clearly see the seasonal shift kicking in. Sales dipped and listings dipped. That's winter. People travel, the weather changes, priority shifts, and the pace of the market naturally slows down. People aren't interested in moving in the wintertime. But here's where it gets interesting. Even though activity cooled off month to month, inventory is still higher year over year. And that changes everything. More inventory than last winter means buyers now have more options. They have more breathing room and fewer situations where they're competing with multiple offers. And for sellers, it means the days of expecting instant competition on every listing aren't as automatic as they were earlier this year. The city of Edmonton followed the same trajectory. Fewer sales, fewer new listings. This tells us the slowdown isn't isolated. The entire region is easing off together. And that's exactly the kind of environment where buyers start negotiating again, without sellers actually being in trouble. So sales slowed, new listings pulled back, and both the city and the region moved in the same direction. But none of that actually tells you what's coming next. If you want to understand where the market is headed, not just where it was in November, you have to look at inventory. So let's take a look at that inventory, because this is where the direction of the market really starts to come into focus. There were just under 6,000 active listings across the greater Edmonton area and about 3.5 months of inventory. That's still technically a seller's market, barely, but noticeably softer than what we saw earlier in the year. And historically, when the markets loosen in the winter, it tightens up again in the spring. When buyers return, listing rises, and that competition starts to pick up. This setup, it has early year rebound written all over it. The city of Edmonton sits at around 3.8 months of supply. Still technically a seller's market as well, but closer to balanced conditions than the region as a whole. For buyers, that means breathing room. For sellers, it means strategy matters more now than ever. So now that we understand where the market is heading from an inventory standpoint, the next question becomes, what's happening with prices? Here's what the pricing landscape actually looked like in November. Across the greater Edmonton area, average prices dipped slightly month over month, nothing dramatic. And year over year, we're still up. That's the definition of a seasonal slowdown, not market weakness. This is why winter can be such a good time to buy. You get softer prices and less competition without risking a dropping market. In the city of Edmonton, the trend is essentially the same. A small dip from October, but still higher than last year. The city and the region aren't diverging. They're actually moving together. And that's exactly what gives buyers and sellers confidence. Price trends tell part of the story, but to really understand buyer behavior, you have to look at what's happening with each specific property type. So here's how each segment of the market performed in November. Detached homes softened slightly this month, but remain higher than last year. Buyers didn't disappear. They just went into winter mode. The demand is still very much alive. Semi-detached homes look almost identical to detached. A small pullback from October, strong progress from last year. This segment has been stable all year because it appeals to so many different buyers. Now, row homes, they had a softer month, which is typical. They're usually the first segment where buyers get cautious. But the big picture, prices have held steady all year. There's no signs of panic. And condos, well, these are the wild card. While everything else softened, condos actually ticked up in price month to month. In a high rate environment, that makes perfect sense. Buyers priced out of detached homes and duplexes are circling back around to condos as the entry point. So that little bump isn't random. It's shifting demand. Now let's talk about days on the market. Condos are sitting the longest. Detached homes are still moving the fastest. That tells you exactly where the most serious buyers are. So that's how each segment is performing. But to see the bigger trend behind it all, you need to look at the MLS Home Price Index. This is the number that cuts through all of the noise. Average prices can jump around. Median prices, they can get skewed, but the benchmark price measures underlying value. And here's what it shows. The benchmark dipped slightly from October, but it's still up more than 3% compared to last year. A market that's actually weakening doesn't post year-over-year growth in November. This is a stable market just taking a winter breather, not a market in decline. If you were waiting or you're hoping for a sign of market collapse, this isn't it. So with the trend line pointing to stability, the real question becomes, what does all of this mean heading into 2026? When you combined everything, the greater Edmonton area trends, the city of Edmonton trends, inventory, pricing, and the home price index, the picture is very clear. Buyers are stepping into a rare pocket of leverage. Sellers are heading into a year where pricing is still strong, but timing matters more than ever. And 2026 is shaping up to be all about strategy. Not panic, not frenzy, but smart timing. For buyers, winter gives you more choice, less pressure, and room to negotiate. For sellers, spring is still your moment when activity jumps and competition tightens the market again. This winter isn't a downturn. It's a typical winter slowdown, and that slowdown is laying the groundwork for what comes next. If you are planning a move in 2026, whether you are buying or selling, and you want help timing it right, make sure that you reach out anytime. All of my details are down in the description below. And if you found this video helpful, make sure that you go ahead and you hit that like and subscribe button, as it really helps the channel out. And let me know down in the comments, did today's video line up with what you thought was happening in the real estate market right now? Let me know in the comments down below. And until next time, I will see you guys later.